Longer LK4X printer, 3D printer that is, FDM printer, sitting right here. I've had this for several weeks. I want to talk about how it's performed and any little quirks I found. Coming up. I'm Roger. Welcome to the loft above the shop because it's warm up here and cold downstairs. It's also cleaner up here. And what I want to talk about here is the Longer LK4X 3D printer. I've had this for several weeks now. I've run several spools of filament through it. I've made a lot of projects. We have shipped quite a few items and parts. So how has this performed? Pretty much flawlessly. The BL Touch on here is great because once I got my bed level, I have not had to mess with it again at all. The BL Touch takes care of everything. The magnetic bed right here makes it very easy to take your parts back off. You just, when your parts are on there, if they're stuck, just give this a little flex. They pop right off. One little quirk thing is this magnet right here is extremely strong. And getting this back in exactly in place so that it's square with the little stops that are on there, you got to really pay attention or you'll have it on top like I just did of one of the stops. So you have to make sure it is between all the stops back here. Overall, it has functioned just fine. I have not had any problems with running out of filament, even though it does have a runout sensor on it, because I always keep an eye on my filament. And I know when I'm getting down to the very end to change spools, because even though this does have a resume, and I have done it once, it will leave an artifact where it resumes. And not just this printer, but any printer that has a resume function, when it resumes, there will be an artifact on that particular layer where it starts over. So just something to keep in mind. If it's a utility part, that's not important. If you're making something that is nice or of very high quality, you don't want that. So has there been any disadvantages to this? Just one, and I'm going to show you what it is here. Right here on the spool holder. The spool holder is designed to bolt directly into this top 2020 extrusion, which it does, and the bolts stay tight. Then your filament sits on this back here and rotates as you need it. When you have a full spool of filament on there, I found that this eventually sags back. And I have a solution to this, I just haven't done it yet. The way this was made was this is all stamped right here and then broke on a press. What I need to do is put a little spot weld right here where this piece meets this piece, because that will eliminate that flex. Because in the back where it's broke around, when I say broke, that means bent, it goes past the base plate back here, allowing this to sag. And it can also sag this way, because I've had that happen too. So this can very easily sag like that from just the weight of the filament on there. So I am going to take this off, put a couple little spot welds on there. Not spot welds, I'm going to MIG weld it. And that will take care of this bending problem here. That is the only quirk I have found on this printer. Get my thing bent back up straight there. One other little thing, and this is not really a down, but something I would like to do here in the future is where the spool rides on this does not rotate. The spool has to rotate on this, and I had one spool that had a burr in it. It was a plastic spool, had a burr on the inside, and it kept catching, and I was getting under extrusions, and it took me a little bit to figure out what was going on there. And once I filed that little burr off there, it was fine. If this would have been a roller on bearings, that would have eliminated that problem. That might have been a freak thing with the spool. So one of the questions I always get is, well, do you recommend this printer? And I have recommended some other printers. The Longer LK5 Pro I use quite a bit. It's back in the other room right now, but that gets used quite a bit for larger projects. This is great on an entry level, especially if you're brand new to this. And I know so many people have a problem with getting their bed level properly. This eliminates a lot of that problem. You do have to do a manual leveling, or technically it's called tramming, to get your bed level on all four corners. And once it does, the BL Touch on here will auto-correct for any little indiscrepancies in there. So you'll end up with a good print every time. Adhesion. My prints won't stick. My prints won't stick. There's a lot of things that can go into that. A lot of times the glass bed you may have to use. Some people use Aquanet hairspray. Some people use a product called Magic Goo, which works very well. I personally use purple glue sticks from Office Depot because they're cheap. I can get a 4-pack for a couple bucks when I need to use them. I do need to run my bed temperatures higher up here in the loft because the ambient temperature up here in the wintertime, I keep it at 60. That's a lot cooler than you're going to have it in your house. If you have this in your house where the ambient's like 74 or so, I'm talking Fahrenheit here, not centigrade, then you can run your bed at 50 degrees C. I have to run mine at 60 C up here, but with this magnetic bed and a little bit of texture on it, it just flat adheres. And it's very easy to get your print back off just by lifting that up and flexing it a little bit. You don't have to use a scraper and bang on it or anything else. So have I had any print failures on here? Yes, I have had 2. The first one was operator error. And if you watched my original video of this, you saw me making this little SD card holder flexible fish. You see up here at the top, his head didn't get finished. That's because I had this setting here, and I had my laptop here, and the stepper motor was hitting the laptop screen on the top, and I ended up under extruding the whole top. So that the cable got caught on the screen. So yeah, that was a failure there. I had one other failure, and this goes back to where I mentioned having that burr on that spool. It was this filament right here, this orange filament, silky filament. And when it did that, this is a key fob, it under extruded everything above that. In fact, it finally just stopped extruding it all because it had caught on that little burr, and that made this fail. Once I discovered that and scraped that little thing off, then it worked just fine. So yeah, I've had 2 failures. One was operator error, one was a little quirk with a burr and a spool. So yeah, things can happen. Nothing's perfect. I've had failures on other printers too. It just happens. But most of the time it's operator error. So there's my update on the Longer LK4X after several weeks of use. A lot of filament run through it, a lot of projects done. So other than that little quirk up there with the spool holder bracket, everything on here works perfect. I'm hoping that maybe in the future they'll do a little bit of an upgrade on that, but I'm not sponsored here and getting paid to say anything nice or bad or otherwise on this. I just wanted to point out that little item. Otherwise, again, everything works perfect. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. Roger in the loft above the shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. And in the link below, you can find one of these if you'd like to pick one up.